Consciousness, consciousness, consciousness is like the ocean, the ocean, the ocean, the ocean. The H2O network, purveyors of passion, seeking to expand human consciousness from the deep depths of the universe of your soul.
Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of the Peake Consciousness Hour. Today I'm absolutely delighted to have writer, researcher Sandie Gustus with me to talk about her new book, more fascinating areas of human consciousness and out-of-the-body experience. I have read Sandie's new book, which is called Letting Complete, A Guide to Experiencing the Human Condition Beyond the Physical Body, and I have to say it is an absolutely superb read, and I very much strongly suggest anybody that's written my book on out-of-the-body experience should read this one as well. Sandie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, fine. Wonderful. It's just we've got some sort of background noises there that were just concerning me a little bit. So, right. So I'd like to know a little bit about your background, because clearly you have a very distinct Australian accent. So let's learn a little bit about you and who you are and how you ended up doing the things you do.
Sure. Okay, before we start, I'd like to say thank you very much, of course, Anthony, for inviting me onto your show. I'm really delighted to be here. So something about my background, I was, are you still there, Anthony?
I am, yes.
Yeah, sorry, I thought something dropped out. I was brought up in a very religious environment, in fact, in Australia. I always attended schools run by priests and nuns. But then after I left university, I travelled a lot. I lived in several countries. I worked at the UN in Geneva for many years among people of around 190 different nationalities, believe it or not. And so I was exposed to many different ways of thinking. So I started exploring other avenues for my spiritual life. I practiced meditation, I learned how to do Reiki, and I had some really great experiences working with energy, etc. And then about 12 years ago, a friend invited me along to do a course at a non-profit organisation in London called the International Academy of Consciousness, the IAC. And the IAC is a scientific research and educational organisation dedicated to the study of the consciousness. So they use the word consciousness as a synonym of soul or spirit. So essentially the consciousness is us. So Anthony, you are a consciousness, I am a consciousness, and so on. And the IAC is particularly interested in understanding how the consciousness manifests outside of the physical body, such as it does during an out-of-body experience. And I was really impressed by the work of the IAC. They have over 45 years of research behind them, which is something really significant. And their work is based on the research of Dr. Waldo Vieira, who is a Brazilian doctor and dentist. And Dr. Vieira is recognised as one of the world's foremost researchers of the consciousness and also as one of the world's most prolific astral projectors. So he's able to produce OBEs at will. So when he wants to leave the body, he's able to do that. Many others within this scope of work, of course, can also do that. I was also impressed with the IAC's research methodology, which focuses on self-research. So the IAC teaches students a lot of techniques that allow them to have their own experiences of the OBE and other phenomena and to control their energy, which is the key to developing your psychism. So I studied there with the IAC for a couple of years, going back and forth from Geneva to London. I also had instructors from the IAC in London come to Geneva to give courses there in Switzerland. I had a lot of experiences. I had OBEs and my psychism started developing very quickly from what I was learning. And to me, the theory of everything I was learning made a lot of sense. it was very logical. But best of all, I was able to verify what I was being taught through my own personal experiences. So with the IEC, there was no requirement for me to just believe in what someone was telling me, and this sat very well with me. I can say that all of this really had a huge impact on my life because I learned through my experiences that I'm not just my physical body, I'm something more than that. I realised that I'm going to survive physical death, and that this current life then is just one of many I have already had and am yet to have. So I can say that this experience, coming into contact with the IEC, really turned my life upside down. So I decided that I wanted to become more involved with the organisation. So around 10 years ago now, I moved to London from Geneva to become a volunteer. And then over the next couple of years, I started to see that Dr. Vieira's books, which explain his research and his whole process for understanding non-physical realities such as other dimensions and non-physical people, were very academic in nature and had a lot of terminology that would be unfamiliar to people who hadn't studied with the IEC. But of course, the information itself is incredible, life-changing for some people. So I decided to write a book that summarised Dr. Vieira's research in a very accessible way, especially for a non-academic audience, so as anyone interested in the ideas could benefit from them in the way that I had.
Sandie, before we go on, I'm sorry to get on air, everyone. This is Dia. Sandie, can you pull your mic away from your mouth?
Sure. How's that?
Oh, that's a lot. The mic is very sensitive, and I want to make sure that everyone hears you. You can hear your breath on the mic.
Okay. Is that all right? Is that better?
That's so much better. Continue.
Great.
Thank you.
Anthony, are you still there?
Continue.
Yeah. Okay. So just to perhaps to tell you a little bit more about my book, Anthony, you'd mentioned my book. It's called Less Incomplete, A Guide to Experiencing the Human Condition Beyond the Physical Body. And listeners can read more about it on my website. So my website is just my name, sandiegustus.com. That's spelled SANDIEGUSTUS, sandiegustus.com. And one of the main objectives of the book is to thoroughly prepare anyone who is interested to have their own experiences outside the body. And it also explains what the benefits of having OBEs are, so as people can understand why they would want to leave the body. So let me give a couple of examples of the benefits that I describe in my book. A really big benefit of the OBE is that it can help people to lose their fear of death. I remember well my first OBE as an adult. I was floating very high above a beautiful beach, and then I decided I wanted to go down and stand on the beach, which I did. And so I saw that I was able to be in control of that experience, to go where I wanted, to do what I wanted to do. So I really understood properly in that moment that I was something much more than just the physical body. And my whole world changed that day because I realised that when the physical body dies, I will continue on in this other body. So you understand that death is not the end, but more a kind of change of address. That when you die, you will spend a period of time existing in a more subtle kind of astral body, and then you will be reborn. And that this cycle of alternating a physical life with a period spent in between two physical lives in a subtle body will go on for a very long time. In this broader context, you start seeing your current life then as a very small part of your overall broader existence. So then you start thinking, okay, if I've had hundreds of lives already and I have many more ahead of me, what am I doing with this particular life? Am I just repeating the same way of life that I've already lived many times before, with the same kind of job or trade, in the same geographical location maybe, perhaps even with the same kind of partner? Am I still suffering with the same weak traits and habits that have caused me problems in previous lives because I never try to overcome them? Am I just living a comfortable life that isn't challenging me and has no personal growth? If you can face yourself with sincerity and see that maybe some of these things apply to you, then you can do something to change that and start challenging yourself to grow as a person, become more mature, perhaps to live a life that has more purpose and meaning, whatever that may be for you, and it will be different for everyone. For me, that meant prioritising a life in which I could help make these ideas more widely available, be that through teaching at the IEC, helping the IEC to give courses in new countries, writing my book, and so on. Another really important benefit of having OBEs is that it naturally increases your psychic abilities. And Anthony, anyone can learn to be psychic. To give you an example from my own life, I didn't consider myself to be at all psychic when I joined the IEC, but I've learned to be. For example, I can read who I have around me non-physically. So I can tell if the non-physical people around me are balanced or pathological, well-intentioned or not. I know how to use my energy in different ways to deal with them appropriately. So this may involve helping them if they need help. By that I mean helping them with my energies, and doing that without allowing their pathologies to unbalance me. Or it may mean that perhaps I need to protect myself if that's the right thing to do. In time, you also learn to sense what people are thinking and feeling. They might be near to you or even far away from you. And you can also learn to know when people are thinking of you. So this development of your psychism opens up a new world, new dimensions for you to explore. It helps you to understand your potential better, to know yourself better, to understand the wider extent of your existence better. As my book says, it helps you to be less incomplete. In other words, more complete as a person. So my book is very much a mixture of theory and practice. I give a lot of tips and techniques and exercises that anyone can apply to help them to have their own experiences outside the body, to control energies and to develop their psychic abilities.
Well, that was absolutely fascinating. So thanks very much for that, because that's given, I think, a lot of the listeners a very good idea of exactly, what the book is about, and also what the IAC is about, which is the idea that we can, under given circumstances, transcend this body, as it wants of a better term, and actually travel into other locations in space and time. Now, I was really intrigued when you gave the example of you found yourself on a beach. Can you describe that a little bit more as to, how did you find yourself there? Did you actually go into a kind of a trance state? Were you semi-asleep, or what? What happened to actually find yourself flying on the beach?
I was asleep, and I just found myself, I had no recollection of leaving the body. I didn't have any sensations of leaving the body or anything like that. So the body was asleep, and then all of a sudden I found myself completely lucid outside of the body. And what for me was really remarkable about that experience, because at that time I was doing a lot of study with the IEC, and as I was there out of the body, it was very much a continuation of my normal physical life. So I remembered so clearly everything that we had learned at the IEC, everything I was studying. I remembered, what I'd been doing that day. And so, as I said, it was very much a continuation of my normal physical life. And so that was great, because when I found myself there outside of the body, I was thinking, okay, now I need to practice some of these things that I've learned, and I want to see if I can control this experience. So I want to go down to the beach and stand there. And then instantly I was there on the beach. So that for me was really a confirmation, as I mentioned earlier, that I'm not just the physical body. I'm something more than the physical body, and I can definitely be in control of that experience. I can exercise my will, I can make decisions, and so on.
Because this is fascinating, because you probably are not aware of a series of shows I've done in the past, but I've interviewed quite a few people that also deal with out-of-the-body experiences, but also individuals that deal with lucid dreaming as well. And in my own work, I suggest that this is a similar phenomenon. It's two sides of the same coin, in the sense that what's happening, we are accessing real realities that are physically out there, that are just slightly different to our own. And indeed, I was very much interested in your concepts of the extra-physical sphere and the crustal dimension, the paratroposphere. And I'd like to just discuss a little bit about this, because this really intrigues me, and it's something that I deal with my own writing, and from the people I know who regularly lucid dream. That is, these places are very, very real, aren't they? I mean, it's not a dream sequence. It's not like a dream. It is really real. So I'd like to know your opinion on exactly what you mean by the extra-physical sphere and then the paratroposphere, and how they fit in with the overall philosophy of the IAC.
Yes. Well, let me talk to you about the crustal dimension that you mention. Is very interesting. It's a dimension that kind of mirrors the physical dimension, but it's not exactly the same. There are subtle differences. So at the IAC, we refer to that as the crustal dimension or the paratroposphere, as you mentioned. But some of the people listening might also know that more popularly by names such as the astral plane, the after-death world, or the spiritual world. So basically, this is a dimension in which people who are no longer alive in the physical sense remain earthbound, probably for want of a better expression. So the crustal dimension is closely connected to Earth, and life there coexists and overlaps with human life. And when non-physical dimensions overlap with physical life in this way, often there are non-physical buildings that mirror the exterior appearance and even the interior decor of actual physical buildings. And this particular characteristic of the crustal dimension can cause confusion among people having OBEs, who sometimes find themselves in environments that they are intimately familiar with outside of the body, such as their own bedrooms or their own homes, for example, and yet they're not exactly the same as what they know, because there are slight differences. So, for example, you might find yourself out of the body in your bedroom. You recognise it as your bedroom, but there might be pictures hanging on the walls or some items of furniture that are not there in your physical bedroom. To give another example, a colleague of mine at the IAC tells a story of how during one of his first projections as a teenager, he passed up and out through the roof of his house and was looking down at the empty field next door. But instead of seeing the usual grass and the one tree that he knew to be there, he could see a building that looked like an office block of some kind. And all of this was very confusing until he realised that when you're outside the body in the crustal dimension there, you can still distinguish some elements of the physical dimension and simultaneously start to see parts of the non-physical dimension. So this is how the dimensions overlap. And Anthony, this is something really interesting to understand. Just to go into that a little deeper, it starts by us understanding that non-physical dimensions are states of consciousness, not geographical locations that fall within our current understanding of space. Our understanding at the IAC is that an individual's thoughts, emotions, and energy are all inextricably linked. So in other words, the quality of a person's energy is influenced by the quality of his thoughts, intentions, ideas, and feelings, and so on. So when large groups of like-minded, non-physical people dwell on the same subject, consistently producing fixed ideas that persist over hundreds of years, eventually the energies of the group generate powerful thought forms that appear to be actual structures. These thought forms are not permanent in the strictest sense of the word, that they no longer require direct conscious management by anyone to be sustained. They've become part of a non-physical environment because they are accepted, and simply by being accepted, energy is added to them. So let me give you an example of that to try and make this a bit more clear. Let's take an example in which many thousands of non-physical individuals whose most recent life was spent living in London are not aware of their condition, i.e. they don't know that they're dead. And this is something that typifies individuals who inhabit the crustal dimension. Because they don't know that they're dead, they all believe that they are leading a normal physical existence, and in so doing they contribute with their energies to the maintenance of existing thought forms that have been built up by others in the same condition over many centuries. And over time, these thought forms have created a non-physical replica of the City of London that doesn't exactly mirror London, but approximates its streets, its buildings, and its landmarks. Most large human cities, in fact, have a non-physical equivalent. So that's just kind of to explain that concept a little further. So that's the crustal dimension. You also mentioned the extra-physical dimension that I talk about a lot in my book. This is a dimension in which the energies are more subtle, and in the extra-physical dimension, you don't have this situation in which it's inhabited by large volumes of individuals who are not aware that they're no longer alive in the physical sense. And so a lot of people, when they're having projections, would find themselves in this extra physical dimension.
Wow. One of the reasons that I was so excited about reading your book, and when you have the opportunity to read my book on the out-of-the-body experience, which, my apologies, by the way, I must actually make sure that my publisher sends you a copy of this for your review, is that I'm coming from exactly the same conclusions from a very different direction, in the sense that I'm trying to do the science of it, and I'm building up a model where I'm suggesting that the energy that you're talking about actually has a scientific validity, and it's actually called zero-point energy. And zero-point energy has been discovered to exist within the subatomic particles, between subatomic particles, and is something called the quantum vacuum. Now, it is clear to me that what is happening here is this information is created by mind, because if you talk to many, many quantum physicists, they will tell you in no uncertain terms that consciousness has a direct effect on bringing physical reality into existence. Indeed, the act of observation creates the reality around us. Now, if this is the case, then you can extrapolate this into other worlds that we can create by physically imagining them. So when you were mentioning in your book, when you mentioned this idea of an alternate London as an example, that resonated with me so strongly. And why I'm delighted at this is that you guys are actually doing the empirical research. You're actually the guys that are going out there and actually testing these environments for individuals like me to come along and say, well, let's see if we can do the science of this, because these experiences are so common. The amount of people I know that have these experiences. But the delightful thing is what you guys are doing, and what Waldo Vieira has done, is actually given a structure and a training and a rigid academic background to these ideas and these.
Yes. Well, actually, a real principle of how we work at the IEC, a real focus of our work, is self-research. That's something very important to what we do, and I can say that without self-research, in fact, there is no IEC. It's the main goal of everyone associated with the organisation. And with self-research, you are, at the same time, the researcher and the object of your own experience. And the out-of-body experience is one of the most important tools we have for self-research, because it allows the individual, i.e. the consciousness, to be both the researcher and the object of the study. In other words, it allows, the OBE allows the consciousness to observe and study itself. And from there, what we're doing is looking at the consensus. Where does the consensus of experience lie across, many individuals, and that's a large part of the basis of the research that we do. But the reason that we place so much emphasis on research is because I can sit here, I can tell you about my experiences, you'll probably find them interesting, but they won't change you in any way. The only way to change yourself deeply and in a permanent way is to really have your own experiences of who you are beyond the physical body. When we prove these things to ourselves through our own experiences, and therefore in a way that we can't deny to ourselves, then our lives really change forever. And the study we do at the IEC helps to speed up this process.
Sandie, can you pull your mic away from your mouth again, please?
Yes, how's that?
That's a lot better. No, it's okay. You just have a very sensitive mic, so when you speak, it's very powerful, but we hear more wind than what you're saying, and we want to get all this juiciness. Go ahead.
Okay. So if someone asks me, do I really believe in the OBE? I say no. I don't believe. I know it's real because I've experienced it for myself. And we want our students at the IEC to have their own experiences too. So the IEC specialised in teaching techniques to assist our students to provoke an experience of each idea so as they can decide for themselves if what we teach is real or not, if what we teach is important, if it's going to help them. There are 38 techniques for producing OBEs in a book of Dr. Vieira's called Projectiology Alone. And just while I'm kind of talking about the principles and the guidelines of the way that we work in the IEC, one other principle that I'd really like to mention is that I think it's important to say is that we never say that the information we present is the definitive truth, that we have the final knowledge. No. This is because science is always changing. So what we know today we consider to be a leading edge, it's what we would call a leading edge relative truth only, i.e. it's the best we know according to our research to date and to the resources, technology and equipment that we have at our disposal. But we might find that tomorrow we need to add to what we know today, that we need to bring more information.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, we seem to have a drop-off there.
No worries. Everyone keep going. I still got you on the line.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, Sandie, you were explaining something when I lost the line. So so after I last spoke was when I last heard you. So please carry on, and I'll pick up as we go along.
Okay. All right. I think, Anthony, one question that a lot of people ask me when I talk about what I do, and I imagine some of your listeners will probably have this question on their mind, so I thought it's a good idea to bring it up here. A lot of people ask, can anyone learn to leave the body? And the answer to that is yes. Anyone can learn to have OBEs and other paranormal phenomena. Anyone can learn to be psychic. So you don't have to have any particular ability or predisposition to these things. These capacities can very much be learned in the same way that you can learn a foreign language or a musical instrument, for example. The learning process will be different for everyone. Some will find that these abilities will come more naturally. Others will have to work and practice harder and for longer. But basically, in a nutshell, anyone can learn to have OBEs. In fact, we have a really fantastic course at the IEC called the Consciousness Development Program, the CDP, in which students study how to have OBEs. And it's really popular because it combines theory with a lot of practice. It's a very comprehensive course. These subjects we take very seriously, so we go into them in a lot of depth. So it's a 40-hour course divided into 4 10-hour modules, and each module is further divided into 4 2.5-hour classes. But from Module 2 onwards, every second class is a practical class in which we teach around 3 techniques for leaving the body, and then we set up blow-up mattresses and blankets, we turn the lights off, we make sure it's very quiet, and the students get to practice the technique for leaving the body for 60 minutes in our classroom environment with an instructor present, of course. After the hour is up, we discuss what happened, what didn't happen, what did people perceive, did they have any particular sensations, etc. If people don't have an OBE, they start learning through these experiences and discussions why not, and then they can work on anything that might be flagged up. So, for example, some people might discover that they have a subconscious fear of what might happen out of the body, a fear of the unknown. So we address that. Others might find that they have some kind of energetic blockage in one of their chakras that's holding them in the body. So then they know that they need to go away and work on clearing that and so on. Throughout the CDP, students also get to work a lot on developing control of their energy. They also have exercises with clairvoyance, in which they have opportunities to see the non-physical dimension and so on. So the course is very much about empowering our students to have their own experiences of all of these phenomena independently of us.
That is fascinating again, because I had the opportunity to visit your offices in London around about 3 years ago in Tottenham Court Road, and I have to say I was delighted. They were given a wonderful reception there. And one of the things that really fascinated me was that you guys, as well as having the training centres around the world, you also have this university campus down in Portugal as well. I'm sure the listeners will be really fascinated to know a little bit more about this and the work you do there, because it really is very exciting stuff as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, yes, we do. We have a fantastic research campus in Portugal, and it's a real hub for anyone wanting to do consciousness research, whether they be academics or the general public. So the campus is not just for IAC people. Everyone is welcome. It's open to the public, and people can do research using both traditional and multidimensional approaches. So here we train our psychism, we practice having OBEs, we do research, we hold courses, conferences and other events. There's a library there of some 26,000 books related to consciousness studies. This includes a large collection that we recently bought from an organisation in New York, as well as collections of journals, DVDs and other items. And there are also 4 laboratories for self-research at the campus that are designed to help people have an experience of a particular phenomenon. The vibrational state laboratory, for example, is designed to help participants achieve the vibrational state, which is the energetic state, which is really key to developing your psychism. We have about another 10 more labs planned, which will include a retrocognitarium, a big word, but this is a lab designed to facilitate the memory of past lives. But one of our most interesting labs today, Anthony, is the projectarium. This is a... Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes, sorry.
Yes,
I just heard a bit of interference.
This is the bit I really want to hear about, because I'm so excited about this concept of the project.
Yes.
So please tell us more.
Okay, it's a spherical building that has been completely optimised for having OBEs. It's the first of its kind in the world. Aside from the more obvious considerations such as the acoustics, shockproofing, heating, cooling, lighting, energetic conditions and so on, attention has also been given to aspects such as the shape of the laboratory. So the spherical shape means, beside other things, that there are no corners or other points upon which to fix your gaze, and this helps people to totally disconnect from the physical environment and to open themselves to perceiving the more subtle, non-physical dimension. So the way it works is, inside the projectarium, the person lies on a bed, very comfortable bed, which is on a suspended platform, which is surrounded by a safety net. So the person's head will then be in precisely the centre of the sphere, and this gives the sense of being in a total void. And again, of course, this helps the person to totally disconnect from the physical dimension. So the person then applies a technique for provoking a lucid OBE. So there's no interference at all from the physical dimension. You're totally isolated from all of that. The energetic conditions in there are optimised for the OBE. So far, we've had over 1,150 people use the lab. Many have reported an OBE. So we hope, Anthony, sometime you'll come down to try that for yourself. And also I invite the listeners to come down to our campus and try the Projectarium and the other labs. You just need to go on our website and get the phone number there and call the campus and arrange a time to do that. So let me just give the website address, Anthony. It's www.iacworld.org.
Thank you. Now, one of the things that when individuals are trained in these techniques of getting out of their body, one of the things that I've always been fascinated by is, are there times when people can get outside of their body when they project into this actual three-dimensional reality that we live within on a daily basis? Have you ever had evidence of people being able to do that?
Can you explain a bit more what you mean by this three-dimensional reality? Are you talking about having a projection in the physical dimension?
In the physical dimension, yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And that's actually a really great question, Anthony, because if you can, well, let me just backtrack a little bit. I think that the very best kind of OBE that you can have is one in which you're able to confirm or verify that was a real experience. And one of the best ways to do that is to have a projection in the physical dimension and to capture some information from the physical dimension that you can later corroborate when you come back to the body. So let me give some examples that the listeners could try for themselves. One thing to do is to take a pack of cards, shuffle the cards, and then pick one. Obviously, you don't want to look at it, and stick it face out, perhaps on your bedroom window with blue tack. And then when you find yourself out of the body, your target for your projection is to go to the other side of the window and read the card and see what it is. Is it the King of Hearts? Is it the Queen of Diamonds? Whatever it is, you see that outside of the body. And then when you return to the body, you go and take the card off the window. And if you were correct, then that's a confirmed experience. I can give you an example of a very interesting experience like this that I had as an instructor at the IAC. We often have courses over the weekend, so a particular module will run over a Saturday and Sunday. So I had some students there in class one Saturday, and we finished with a practical class on the Saturday, and I said to them, okay, you're all going home now, and during the night, when you go to bed, I want you to practice one of the techniques that we've learned today, and your target for the projection is to come back here to the classroom, and I'm going to write a word on the board. And I did that, and the word I wrote was will, W-I-L-L. So the students went off overnight. They came back for class the next day. I'd removed the word from the board before they came in, and two women came in together. They'd met at a train station on their way to the IEC, travelled in together. And when they met at the train station, one woman said to the other, well, I'm sure I had a projection to the IEC's classroom during the night. I felt myself to be there out of the body. It was not just an episode of clairvoyance or remote viewing. And she said, I saw a word on the board. And she wrote it down on a piece of paper and she showed her friend. And they showed me when they arrived at the classroom. And it was the same word, will. So that's the very best type of projection that you can have. That's a confirmed experience. And so then you know for yourself that that was real.
That's absolutely intriguing. Funnily enough, I wish I'd actually been in contact with you properly when I was doing the research for my own on the out-of-the-body experience. Because one of the things I was desperate to find out was any absolutely verifiable, irrefutable evidence that when somebody projects outside of their body, they can see things in what's known as consensual space. You know, the idea that they can actually see something that can be subsequently verified that they couldn't have possibly known.
Yes.
Because to me, that is absolutely revolutionary, because what that suggests is that intelligence, consciousness, conscious awareness is part of an overall field. It's not located in the brain, it's not located in the head as such, that the head is effectively a receiver of information that focuses the information into consciousness. But consciousness exists as a form of field. Now, I'd be very keen at some time in the future to work with you guys on this, because I would be absolutely delighted if I could have come across absolute verifiable evidence that this is the case, because this would really revolutionize my own work as well, because one of the things I was profoundly disappointed was finding that there wasn't the information I needed, but clearly you guys are doing this. Now, what I'd also ask is that if any of the listeners out there would like to do that experiment that Sandie suggested with the card, it would be really interesting to see what kind of results we can get on this, because I know that there are individuals involved in my group on Facebook and and the Walker group and various other organisations that claim they can actually project out the body, and I think that's a wonderful test, particularly if there is somebody who can verify this in three-dimensional reality, you know, to make it veridical, in the sense that somebody can actually say, yes, this is exactly what I put here, and you subsequently found it. So that's something we can be trying for the future, I think, because that's very, very exciting. Now, one of the other things that intrigued me as well in your work and in your book was the concept of helpers, individuals that are out there in the paraphysical, for want of a better term, who are there to help people develop. Can you tell us a little bit more about this concept?
Yes, the helper, that's a term that we use in conscientiology, the science that we study. But I guess people would know that term by other terms such as mentor or guide or spirit guide, even a guardian angel. So a helper, in fact, is someone that we see as not a mystical being, but rather someone who is exactly like us in that they've had a physical life before, they're going to have more physical lives, but they are more advanced than we are. They're more evolved than we are. And so they spend all of their time 24/7 doing assistance for other people. So that's their whole purpose, that's their whole raison d'être, if you like. And when they see that people are interested in understanding more about their broader reality, understanding how to have OBEs, this is something that they really want to support. They want to help us with that. And so And so, you know, they will do what they can. For example, at the IAC there, we have the helpers there in our class, the non-physical helpers there in our class, helping the students, helping them to leave the body as well. So yeah, that's a little bit about the helpers.
Okay, because one of the other things that, again, intrigued me, one of your descriptions of the idea that when people die, they're not aware that they're dead. In other words, they're in a position, this kind of self-created, not illusion, because that's the wrong term, as I know as when you and I were discussing this yesterday. I hate using the word hallucination or illusion, because it suggests that it is not real, whereas, of course, the way the brain processes reality and the way the brain works with modeling the external world internally within the brain is just exactly the same kind of hallucination anyway. So we need to come up with a better term than that is non-pejorative. But one of the things that intrigued me was when you mentioned that sometimes when these people pass over, they're not aware they're dead. And when you mentioned this, it resonated with me, because there was a friend of mine many years ago, Kitty, who was told that she was profoundly clairvoyant. And Kitty was one of the most least clairvoyant, she was very down-to-earth character. But she started to develop these skills, and she went to the house that her mother used to live in. Her mother had died tragically of cancer very, very suddenly. And although she knew she was ill, the death was still quite sudden. And when Kitty went into the house and into the room, she actually found her mother curled up in the corner of the bedroom. And she had great difficulty in convincing her mother that she was dead. Mm. And you mention this in your book as well, this idea there are people who are simply not aware that they are not here.
Yes.
Which is fascinating, isn't it? Because it ties into mediumship and everything else.
Yes, I think the main reason that happens is because people associate their awareness so strongly with being alive in the physical sense that when they die and find that, you know, they still have a level of awareness, of lucidity, of clarity of thought, they assume that they are still alive in the physical sense. Of course, sometimes people die unexpectedly, suddenly, and, you know, they didn't see that coming, and so that's another thing altogether, that, you know, they don't know that they died. Another thing that happens is people have preconceived ideas of what's going to happen to them when they die. And then when they die and that doesn't happen, again, they don't realise that they're dead because what's going on is not what they expected. And so for all these different reasons, people believe that they're still alive in the physical sense. And then what is the natural thing to do? You're going to stay around the places that you know, the places that are familiar to you. So for most people, that's the home, of course. They want to stay around their family, be close to the family and the people that they know. But this can become, of course, a confusing experience for these people because they often try to keep living their normal life, but of course nobody can see them and nobody can hear them. I don't know if you saw the film The Sixth Sense, but that is a kind of a very good illustration of an actual reality. And of course, when the people that they're trying to communicate with don't respond, can't perceive them, then this becomes very distressing.
I think I agree with you there, and I was just reminded of, well, you know, When Dreams May Come and movies like that. Now, if you take my work, what I suggest in my work is that everything we perceive is effectively inwardly generated. It's generated internally by something, and it's drawn up in informational terms, almost digitally, like a computer program. And of course, the one thing that exists within this three-dimensional consensual reality world that we exist within is a phenomenon known as time. And of course, time is something that, and I'm sure you will agree with this because other people that I know that have done these kind of things, that have out-of-the-body experiences and travel on the astral plane, say time is different there. You know, you can have a whole experience in the astral which could take place in only a few seconds in real time. And I think what is happening is that when people effectively die, they die in our time scale, but their own time scale. The death doesn't occur because they're outside of time, and they're trapped in this kind of weird netherworld of self-created reality overlapping on real reality, and it becomes very, very confusing to them. And, you know, I think the power of this and the power of the movie like Sixth Sense is so evocative, and it's almost a zeitgeist. It's a kind of it's almost a message to us that this is the real reality is outside of us, and we create these worlds. And when we die, or when we move on, or when we fall out of time at the end of life, we go into this kind of almost Buddhist bardo state, you know, which is an unreality, but it's part of a real reality. Now, one of the things that I'm sure that the listeners out there would love to have a little bit of free information from you as to, you know, one or two techniques that they could try, that they could practice at home to see if they can get out of their body, because I'm really keen to get feedback from people who have these experiences, because my philosophy is that science works empirically, and empiricism is actually, the word means from experience. So if people have these experiences, it's of profound importance. So can you give us a couple of tips as to what the IAC tell us about what you can do?
Yes, absolutely. Let me describe one of the easier techniques devised by Dr. Vieira. It's called the psychophysiological self-relaxation technique. He describes this in his book, Projectiology. I also describe it in my book, Less Incomplete. And this technique works on the basis that a deep state of relaxation is also a technique for causing the subtle astral body to gently detach from the physical body and float. And you will easily recognise when the separation has taken place because you'll no longer be able to feel your physical body. It will feel numb. So numbness is one of many different sensations that are commonly experienced when the physical and astral bodies start to separate. And this is completely normal and nothing for anyone to feel concerned about. So this is how you do the technique. First, and I would recommend you do this before applying any technique for leaving the body, you need to spend a good 20 minutes or so getting yourself into a very relaxed state using any technique that you know works well for you. Because, of course, if you're going to leave the body, you need to completely forget about the physical dimension. So you need to be very relaxed. So do that first. And then this is the psychophysiological self-relaxation technique. Inhale deeply, fill your lungs, and then contract or tense a muscle group in your face. So, for example, you might start off by crinkling your forehead. And while you're doing this, hold your breath for 5 seconds. And then exhale and relax your forehead. Again, inhale deeply and contract another muscle in your face. So, for example, you might squeeze your eyes tightly shut. Hold your breath for 5 seconds and then exhale and relax your eyes. Continue doing this, moving through the various muscle groups in your face. So you can clench your jaw, screw up your nose, contract your neck muscles and so on. You move through your whole body, each time breathing in, filling your lungs deeply, contracting a muscle group, holding your breath for 5 seconds, then exhaling and relaxing the muscle. So in other words, you're going to move down one arm, the other arm, right down your trunk, and then one leg and the foot, and the other leg and the other foot. And we often carry tension in our bodies without even being aware of it. So the idea of this technique is that as you relax each muscle, you will release any tension you're holding and gradually establish a more profound state of relaxation. Once you feel the body becoming numb, you will know that the astral body is starting to detach from the physical body and float up. So at this point, what you want to do is concentrate on the target of your projection. By that I mean, where is it that you want to go? So you should choose somewhere that you're really motivated to go to, and then the subtle body will be drawn to go there. So that's a fairly simple technique that anyone would be able to apply. If you've gone right through your body, relaxed each muscle group in turn, and you find that you're still very much inside of the body, at the end of that, just go back to the beginning and start again.
Wow, that sounds fascinating. I will be trying that myself tonight. Because one of the things I'm quite fascinated in as well is something called the hypnagogic state, which is that kind of state you are before sleeping and waking, if you can become lucid during those periods, because we are semi-lucid at that time. And again, these are techniques, aren't they, to just become aware of the fact sometimes when you're dreaming, which of course I'd argue you're not dreaming at all, you're actually travelling in alternate states. And this is what people like Robert Monroe and such like would argue, and William Bullman. And there's some fascinating writers out there on this as well. So in terms of, as we're now coming towards the end of our hour-long chat, and as I said, Sandie, what happens is it just shoots by because you're not aware of it, because it's such interesting stuff that you just want it to last forever, really. I'd now like to be just interested very quickly in terms of any events you've got coming up that you'd like to mention, because I know that you guys are very, very active in terms of events and such like. So maybe if you can let some of the listeners know, and what we can do is we can probably put it up on Facebook and on my website and everything else as well, so people are aware.
Sure, thanks. Yes, I'll actually be speaking at the next Scientific and Medical Network Conference, which is being held here in the UK from August the 24th to the 26th. The conference is called Body and Beyond 3, Scientific and Spiritual Perspectives on the Subtle Body. So it's a whole weekend dedicated to discussing the subtle body, which is fantastic. So my talk's going to focus on the experiential side, in other words, on the importance of being able to have your own experiences of the OBE and other phenomena. So as we've discussed, you can really see for yourself, experience for yourself that you have a subtle body, that you are something more than just the physical body. But otherwise, at the IEC's educational centres around the world, they regularly hold free public lectures. And so if anyone is interested in the work that we do, I would highly recommend that's a great place to start. You come along to a free lecture. All of the dates and times at all of the different offices are there on our website, which again is www.iacworld.org. So there you can meet us, get more information about us, about our work and our courses, ask all the questions that you want, and decide if what we do is something that interests you or not. And of course, aside from the free lectures, the Consciousness Development Program, which I mentioned earlier on in our talk, which is our core course that really combines the theory and the practice, is being held at all of our offices on an ongoing basis throughout the year. So if students are keen to come along and train with us, that's also, the course to start with.
Right, okay, thank you very much for that. Now, as a final question, one of the things that has long intrigued me is when people share experiences, when they share an out-of-the-body experience and they meet somebody else who's also having an out-of-the-body experience. Have you had any examples of that yourself?
No, I haven't had any examples of that myself where I've met somebody that I know outside of the body, but I do have some colleagues at the IEC who have had that experience, and generally what you would find is that's what we call a joint projection. You can try to make that happen. I don't think that's something that's so straightforward to do, because then you need to find each other in the same dimension at exactly the same time. But it's something that's more likely to happen between two people who are close, who have a real connection.
Right, yeah, because it's one of the things you're probably aware of Tom Campbell and the work that Tom has been doing in his My Big Toe hypothesis. And one of the things I interviewed Tom in an earlier show, and we were discussing there about mutual scenarios where you can meet up in these alternate realities. Because to me, that would be incredibly strong proof, that if somebody goes there and they give some information to somebody else and they bring it back. Now, somebody else that's been on my shows in the past, Robert Wagner, who is one of the world's leading authorities on lucid dreaming, which very much overlaps with what you guys do. I mean, he has on occasions been in dream situations, in lucid dream situations, where he has actually met somebody else he's known. And he said that they are sometimes in a kind of a semi-sleep state themselves when you meet them, and you're not quite sure if they're taking in what you're saying to them. But effectively, if you give them some kind of a word or a symbol, and then when you meet them in consensual reality, if you mention this to them, you sometimes will see a recognition go over their face as if you've had a kind of a shared experience. But because, as you rightly say, we build up our own worldview, so therefore what we're building and what they're building might be quite different, and you need the overlap. But it's, again, something I would be really fascinated to be doing in the future. And this is why I'm very keen to link up with you in the future in terms of some of the things you're doing. Well, Sandie, we are almost time up. So all I'd like to do is to say thank you very much for spending an hour with us on your very busy schedule. I'm hoping to I'm a member of the Scientific and Medical Network as well, so I'm hoping to probably try and get along to the event if I can. I'm not sure how my schedule runs that weekend, but I will try and get along to that, because I was delighted to see that on your book, people such as Stanley Krippner considered it a provocative and elegant book. And Dr. Peter Fenwick, who's a member of both the International Association of Near-Death Studies and the Scientific and Medical Network, said it was an important book for those who are curious about the possibility of the existence of other levels of consciousness besides that of the purely physical body. And I think that's of profound importance. And I think there will be many listeners out there, I'm sure, will be wanting to check out your incredible book and everything else. So thank you very much, Sandie, for your time. And hopefully we'll have the opportunity to meet up sometime in the future.
Thank you, Anthony. Thanks very much for having me on your program. I appreciate that a lot. And yes, I look forward to meeting you hopefully soon.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. And
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.